Have you ever walked away from a conversation and felt uneasy, uncertain, almost as if you'd agreed to something without realizing? You replay the moment, searching for what was real and what was performance. Carl Jung once warned, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. In that space, manipulation thrives. We imagine manipulation as a rare skill, the weapon of villains in movies or cunning politicians. But in truth, it's everywhere, in families, in friendships, at work, even among strangers. The art of spotting manipulation is not about paranoia. It's about self-respect. It's about learning to see with both eyes open, to sense the subtle pull of someone else's will, and to answer it with your own clear voice. This story is for those who've felt their confidence shaken by gaslighting, who've lost time to emotional games, who want to reclaim their boundaries and build real trust, even when the world tries to push you off balance. Stay with me. In the next chapters, you'll learn the signals, the psychology, and the everyday examples. You'll discover tools not only to protect yourself, but to stay true, courageous, and real in every relationship. Manipulation wears many masks. It can be as dramatic as open deceit or as subtle as a sigh at the right moment. To truly defend yourself, you need to see through these masks, and that begins with naming them. 1. Guilt tripping. You hear it in the words, "After all I've done for you," or "If you really cared, you would." The manipulator frames their needs as your moral duty, making you feel selfish for saying no. In families, it might sound like a parent reminding you of sacrifices. In romance, it's the partner who counts every favor. The result? You do things against your will, haunted by the fear of being called ungrateful. 2. Gaslighting. Named after the classic film, gaslighting is when someone makes you doubt your memory, sanity, or judgment. You're imagining things that never happened. Over time, you start questioning your own reality, relying on the manipulator for truth. At work, this might be a boss denying promises. In friendship, it's the friend who insists you're too sensitive. The aim is control. If you doubt yourself, you're easier to direct. 3. Silent treatment. Withdrawing affection, attention, or even basic communication to punish or gain power. Sometimes it's a parent not speaking for days, or a partner shutting down after an argument. You scramble to make things right, even when you're not sure what you did wrong. 4. Playing the victim. No matter what happens, they're the ones who are hurt most. Every challenge becomes your fault. Every disagreement is an attack. They use sympathy as a weapon. The more you comfort them, the more they control the narrative. 5. Love bombing and withdrawal. Overwhelming you with attention, praise, or gifts, only to suddenly pull away. The emotional roller coaster leaves you craving their approval. It happens in toxic relationships, at work with manipulative bosses, or even among friends who flatter until they need something. 6. Triangulation. Dragging a third party into conflict to isolate, confuse, or pressure you. Everyone agrees with me. Or, even your friend thinks you're wrong. Suddenly, you're not just arguing with one person, you're battling a whole chorus. 7. Projection. Blaming you for feelings or actions that are actually theirs. They accuse you of dishonesty when they're the ones lying, or call you selfish while refusing to compromise. 8. Moving the goalposts. No matter what you do, it's never enough. As soon as you meet one expectation, another appears. The manipulator keeps you chasing approval, always off balance. Each of these forms comes with its own signals. The nervous laughter, the dramatic silences, the way a compliment always seems to have a hook. Carnegie would say, "Talk to people about themselves and they will listen for hours." But a manipulator twists this truth, using attention as a tool for control. The first step is awareness. Learn to spot the patterns. The second is self-respect. Practice saying no without apology, keeping your own reality in focus. But theory is never enough. Let's break these down one by one and see how they work in real life, how they can creep into your family, your workplace, even your closest friendships. And now, what does this kind of manipulation really mean? Carl Jung would remind us, it's important to understand, not every act of manipulation is intentional. Most people who guilt trip, play the victim, or withdraw into silence aren't plotting to control you. More often than not, they are simply repeating patterns they learned long ago, often from family, from the roles modeled in childhood, from survival habits formed in homes where love and approval felt conditional. Imagine a father who, when upset, would stop talking for days. His child, anxious and eager to restore peace, learned to tiptoe around conflict, to apologize quickly even when not at fault. Years later, that same child becomes an adult who, without thinking, uses silence as a way to express pain or demand attention from a partner. Or think of a mother who managed every disagreement with tears and guilt, making her children feel responsible for her happiness. Those children might grow up believing that love is proven by sacrifice and self-blame. And so, as adults, they echo the same script, pulling on heartstrings instead of speaking openly. Carl Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Many people act out these dramas on autopilot, never realizing that their words and gestures, their entire emotional vocabulary, was shaped by people who may never have learned a healthier way. But there is another truth we must face. Some people do use manipulation knowingly, as a means to get what they want. The colleague who flatters you when they need help and disappears when you're struggling. The friend who plays up every crisis to keep you close. Your subscription and comment aren't just numbers. They're signals that decide what video comes next. Share your thoughts or ideas in the comments. They often become the foundation for news stories. Interestingly, over 90% of viewers watch my videos without subscribing. That's okay. It means the content pulls you in. But subscribing helps you stay updated with the next parts. Hit subscribe, and let's create the next video together, but never offers real support in return. The partner who keeps score, always reminding you of their sacrifices as leverage. How can you tell the difference? Watch for consistency. If someone always seems to win after an argument, if your boundaries are never respected, or if conversations feel more like traps than opportunities for understanding, you're likely dealing with conscious manipulation. Another signal is the feeling in your gut, that subtle discomfort, the sense you're being pushed into decisions that don't serve you. Jung believed that your intuition, shaped by countless subtle cues, is a powerful guide. He said, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases." If a situation repeatedly feels wrong, even if you can't explain why, trust yourself. If you're watching this, you're already taking the most important step, learning to name and recognize these patterns. You're becoming more conscious, less likely to be caught in someone else's script. In the next part, we'll look at how to recognize manipulation in real life, not just in theory, but in the moments when it matters most. Because when you see it as it happens, you gain the power to choose your response. Spotting manipulation in real life is not about memorizing a list of tricks. It's about developing a kind of inner radar. Often, the body knows before the mind does. A tightness in your chest, a hesitation before you answer, a strange urge to justify yourself for no clear reason. Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And it's true. Many people ignore these signs because it's uncomfortable to admit when something feels off. So, what does manipulation look like as it's unfolding? Imagine a family dinner. You announce a decision that's important to you, and someone immediately responds, "Well, I suppose that's fine if you don't care about the rest of us." You feel a rush of guilt, a need to defend your choice. Or maybe at work, you suggest an idea, and a colleague says, "If you were more experienced, you'd understand why that won't work." Suddenly, you find yourself questioning your own competence. These are not open arguments. They are subtle emotional nudges, pushing you to doubt yourself, to step back, to conform. The signs can be small. A friend who forgets to invite you out, then says you're too sensitive when you mention it. A partner who changes plans last minute, blaming you for their own disorganization. A boss who gives compliments only when you're useful, but turns cold when you set a boundary. Jung believed that manipulation succeeds because it appeals to what he called the shadow, the parts of ourselves we're uncertain about, the old wounds, the fear of being unloved or not enough. Manipulators, consciously or not, sense these vulnerabilities, but you can learn to notice the pattern. Do you feel smaller after conversations with this person? Are your no's always met with pressure, guilt, or coldness? Do you leave interactions feeling confused, as if the facts have been twisted? Another sign is the moving goalpost. Every time you meet one demand, another appears, and the rules always seem to change. Or perhaps you're offered conditional kindness, affection only when you're doing what the other person wants. Jung advised, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. The point is not to become paranoid, but to pay attention to your own reactions. If you feel drained, anxious, or persistently wrong-footed around someone, it's time to ask yourself, am I being nudged away from my truth? As you get better at noticing manipulation in real time, you reclaim your power. You stop reacting automatically and start choosing your response. Maybe that means calmly naming what's happening. I feel like you're trying to make me feel guilty for my decision. Maybe it means stepping back to reflect or simply refusing to play the game. The more you practice, the more you trust your own perceptions and the less sway emotional games have over you. Sometimes, manipulation isn't in the words at all, it's in the body. Jung often reminded his students that the unconscious speaks as much through gestures as through language. The tilt of a head, the crossing of arms, a sudden lean forward, or even the smallest smile. These subtle cues shape the emotional current of any conversation. There's a phenomenon called mirroring. Without realizing it, we tend to copy the posture, gestures, and even the breathing of those with whom we feel safe or wish to connect. A friend smiles, and you smile back. Someone leans in, and you find yourself doing the same. This can build trust and rapport. It's the body's way of saying, we're on the same side. But what if mirroring is used intentionally? Salespeople, negotiators, and even skilled manipulators sometimes adopt your gestures on purpose, knowing that it lowers your guard and makes you more receptive. It's not always sinister. Sometimes it's simply the instinct of someone trying to fit in or build connection. Yet, when combined with emotional pressure or persuasive language, mirroring can nudge you toward agreement or compliance without your conscious awareness. On the flip side, if you notice someone always matching your movements, you might start to feel an uncanny sense of rapport, or, if it feels forced, a strange discomfort. The effect is powerful, but also fragile. When the mirroring is too obvious or insincere, it triggers distrust. Here's a situation to consider. Imagine you're at a work meeting, presenting an idea you believe in. One colleague, who rarely agrees with you, suddenly sits with their arms folded exactly like you, nods in sync as you speak, and echoes your key phrases. As the discussion unfolds, you find yourself feeling oddly supported, maybe even more confident. Afterward, this colleague tries to persuade you to join their project, using language that mirrors your own, and you feel an unexpected urge to say yes. Is this just a coincidence? Or is your colleague consciously using mirroring as a tool of subtle influence? Jung would say the answer lies in your feelings during and after the interaction. Did you feel your boundaries slipping? Did the rapport feel genuine? Or was there an undertone of manipulation? Let's turn the lens back to you. Have you ever caught yourself copying someone's gestures without thinking, or felt uneasy when you realized someone was mirroring yours? Did it deepen the connection, or did it make you more susceptible to their requests? Have you ever wondered, after agreeing to something, if your yes was really yours, or just the echo of a well-played emotional dance? Not every instance of mirroring is manipulation. Sometimes, it's just the body's way of searching for harmony, especially in stressful or new situations. But awareness is key. When you notice these patterns, you can pause and check in with yourself. Am I choosing freely, or being nudged by invisible strings? What do you think? Is mirroring a harmless social habit or a subtle form of influence? Share your experience in the comments. Was there a time you felt drawn into agreement by someone's gestures or recognized your own body language being reflected back at you? There is a silent force in the world, one that rarely needs words. Carl Jung called it the emotional resonance between people. Nowhere is this more evident than in the power of tears, especially the tears of a woman, a daughter, or a child. To witness someone cry is to be drawn into their feeling, almost before the mind has time to question or defend. From the earliest age, we are shaped by this reaction. A small child, perhaps a little girl, learns quickly that a trembling lip and shining eyes can change the atmosphere of a room. Adults rush to comfort, to soothe, to give in, not out of calculation, but because empathy moves faster than logic. The lesson is learned not through lectures, but through experience. When tears flow, doors open, arms soften, rules are bent. The world seems to conspire to make things right for the one who suffers. Jung wrote, "Emotion is the chief source of all becoming conscious. There can be no transforming of darkness into light without emotion." Tears, then, are not only signs of sadness. They are keys that unlock deep wells of feeling in others. For many men, the sight of a woman's tears is disarming. It can silence anger, erase boundaries, and trigger a deep desire to fix, to protect, to surrender. This is not foolishness or weakness. It is a testament to our shared humanity, the ancient code that links compassion to the physical act of weeping. Yet, as time goes on, some discover how powerful this reaction can be. What begins as genuine sadness sometimes becomes a tool, not always by design, but as a habit formed through countless small rewards. If a girl cries and her parents relent, if a young woman learns that tears can soften a lover's resolve or end an argument, she might carry this lesson into adulthood, using emotion as a way to steer the course of events. It is not always planned. More often, it is instinct, a reflex inherited and reinforced by years of practice. Consider the classic scene, a young woman in conflict with her partner. The discussion grows heated, and suddenly her voice trembles, eyes fill, and silence falls. The man, caught between guilt and concern, finds his anger dissolving. He steps back, concedes, or comforts, and the direction of the moment shifts. The tears have spoken where words would not suffice. In childhood, too, the same drama unfolds. A little girl's tears can turn discipline into forgiveness, boundaries into exceptions. Jung observed that this pattern often continues through life, shaping relationships, decisions, and even the balance of power in subtle ways. Of course, not all tears are pretense, and not every emotional appeal is a strategy. More often, it is a deep, unconscious language, one that moves us because it speaks to our own hidden longings and fears. Every form of addiction, Jung noted, is bad, no matter whether the narcotic be alcohol, morphine, or idealism. In a sense, the repeated reliance on emotional display can become a kind of addiction, a shortcut to understanding, a way to bypass dialogue and leap straight to surrender. For men, awareness is crucial. To recognize the effect tears have is not to lose compassion, but to add clarity. The heart can be moved without the mind becoming blind. To witness emotion and still hold your own truth. This, Jung believed, is the beginning of real maturity. There is a moment in every difficult conversation when emotion swells, and then meets the immovable wall of reason. Cold logic, carefully chosen arguments, and a steady mind have a unique power. They illuminate the truth and strip away the confusion that feelings sometimes create. For all the force of tears or the pressure of silent glances, there is no substitute for facts calmly laid out, timelines recalled, and words measured with care. Carl Jung believed that the integration of logic and emotion was essential for wholeness. He wrote, "Reason alone is not enough. Emotion without reason is blind." Yet, when emotion seeks to steer the conversation and logic enters, not as a weapon, but as a guide, the air changes. The patterns that once seemed so powerful begin to unravel. Suddenly, the situation stands exposed. Each tactic, each plea, each subtle twist of the story is revealed for what it is. Consider a negotiation, a family debate, or a late-night disagreement between partners. One side grows emotional, perhaps raising their voice, appealing to old wounds, or changing the subject. The other side, prepared with facts and clarity, meets every wave with an island of calm. Let's look at what happened, step by step. Here is what was promised. This is what I need. The temperature in the room drops. The spell is broken. In this atmosphere, the person who once seemed to hold all the cards is suddenly without cover. The logic does not attack. It simply shines a steady light, asking neither for pity nor for surrender. Arguments become transparent. Excuses lose their weight. The truth is allowed to breathe. Jung noted, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. In other words, to see clearly is to reclaim power, not through force, but through understanding. When logic is present, even the strongest emotions must stand on their own, without the cloak of confusion or the shield of drama. There's a strange peace that comes with this clarity. A person who once relied on emotion finds themselves, for a moment, as if revealed, an open book, their motives and hopes laid bare. This is not a defeat, but an invitation to real dialogue, where solutions are found not through pressure, but through respect for the truth. Of course, pure logic can be cold. Jung would remind us that compassion and insight must walk together. But when the storm of feeling is met with the gentle force of reason, the conversation changes course. Defensiveness fades. Posturing falls away. There is no place to hide, but also no need. The ground becomes level, and both people are free to speak without fear or masks. The art, then, is in balance, to honor feeling, but to anchor the moment in what is real and knowable. In this space, real understanding, and sometimes real forgiveness, can begin. The real mastery in life comes not from choosing between logic and empathy, but from learning to hold both in each moment. In everyday situations, this balance is what keeps you grounded without making you distant, strong without becoming cold, open without being naive. Imagine you're at work and a colleague is frustrated, their complaints laced with emotion. It's tempting to counter them point by point, relying on policies and facts. But if you pause, acknowledge their feeling, I see this really matters to you, and I want to get it right, and then gently return to the facts, you invite cooperation instead of conflict. Logic provides structure. Empathy builds the bridge. Carl Jung taught, feeling tells us what something is worth to us. Reason shows us how to attain it. In family life, this is especially vital. When a child is upset over a broken promise or a friend's betrayal, you might want to explain, to fix, to correct. But first, sit beside them. Listen. Reflect their feeling. That must really hurt. Only then, with trust built, will your advice or perspective truly land. Consider a disagreement with a partner. If one of you responds only with cool detachment, the other may feel ignored or dismissed. If you answer only with emotion, the argument circles endlessly. But if you name your own experience, I understand why this upset you. Can we talk about what happened step by step? You signal respect and a desire for truth, not just victory. In social settings, the power of balance is subtle but transformative. When someone shares a story, don't jump in with solutions or try to top their experience. Listen, reflect, and then, if appropriate, offer insight. The greatest connections are built in these pauses, when both hearts and minds are engaged. Self-protection is part of the balance too. If you sense someone is drawing you into emotional games or endless drama, use your clarity. Set a boundary. I care about you, but I can't solve this for you. Or, I need time to think before I respond. This isn't coldness. It's a way to protect your center while remaining present. Jung warned against being swallowed by others' feelings, but also against becoming so logical that you lose the ability to relate. He believed that real growth was found in the tension of the opposites, holding empathy in one hand, clarity in the other, never letting go of either. Day by day, these small acts of balance change your relationships. Friends trust you, partners feel safe, and you remain open to life's richness without being swept away by its storms. As we move toward the end of this story, remember, every time you pause to honor both feeling and reason, you build strength and intimacy. Every time you say, I see you, and I see the truth, you invite others to do the same. Thank you for joining me on this journey, not just through today's story, but through every video, every lesson, and every thoughtful comment you've left along the way. Your presence, your questions, and your willingness to reflect make this channel a living, breathing community. I see your support, your wisdom, and the courage it takes to face the subtle influences that shape our lives. We've talked about hidden agendas, emotional games, and the art of seeing clearly without losing your compassion. If even one idea from these episodes has helped you protect your boundaries, speak your truth, or build deeper relationships, then this work is worth it. Don't forget, your voice matters here. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your experience may be exactly what someone else needs to hear. If you found value in this story, subscribe and stay with us for the next chapters. Whether you're new here or have watched every episode, I'm grateful for your trust and your time. There are many more insights and stories ahead, and together, we're building a space where honesty and understanding can thrive. Thank you for being part of this. Until next time, stay wise, stay real, and remember, your journey to self-awareness is just beginning.